Welcome to the Nate and Dorin podcast. We are professional videographers based in Vancouver, Canada, and we are here to talk about relevant topics within the video and media industry. I'm Nate, and I run Nate Dixon Media.
And I'm Dorin, the videographer, solo entrepreneur offering video production services. And today we're joined by our special guest, the Maestro, master of ceremonies, magician, game show host, and game designer. Maestro, thank you for making time to be on the podcast.
Oh, thank you very much for asking me to be here. A pleasure working with both of you again.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We know Maestro from working together in the dance industry. You do emceeing there, and definitely a few magic tricks. And you're just
Wait, hold on, Dorin.
Yeah.
Dorin, hold on a sec. Maestro, can you do a magic trick for us right now? Would that be possible?
I certainly could. In fact, I'll do one of my favorite effects for you guys: illusions, trick, magic. But it had become one of my favorites pre-pandemic. If I set this up the right way, I just want to make sure you can see this tabletop.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and these cards, and I'm going to stand up so you're going to get a view of my tummy right now, but I want you to see these cards. Okay, I have a deck of cards here, and I made a prediction. And I put it in this deck, wrote it down, put it in this deck face up. Okay, in a moment, I'm going to have Dorin. I want you to think of a suit, either hearts, clubs, spades, or diamonds. Okay, don't say it yet, just think of one. And Nate, I want you to think of a number from ace to king. Ace obviously being the most obvious, so you can choose it if you want to, but it is definitely one of the more obvious choices. All the way up to king, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, jack, queen, king. Okay. Dorin, have you got a suit in mind?
Yes.
You do have a suit. Okay, let's start with Nate. What card were you thinking?
I was thinking of the jack.
Just the jack. Jack, and the suit you're thinking of, Dorin?
Spades.
Jack of spades. Okay, spades also very common, but it's okay. You're a common person, so I kind of expect that. But just again, to let everybody know who is watching this, we have not set this up in any way. I have not asked you to say any of this. This is all your own free choices. And again, as I've said to you earlier, any magic I do on video is one I can reproduce live. So I told you I have a prediction here in this deck. I just want to make sure you guys can see this, okay? Take the cards out of the box. Can you see them okay?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the surface here, so because I'm going to get ready to show you
most of it. Yes.
You'll see. Hopefully, you'll be able to see everything. But
yeah, I see up your fingers. Yeah.
The prediction, the card together you guys came up with was the Jack of Spades. Okay, so let's see how well I did. I'm going to go through the cards nice and okay. That's probably from the last time I did it. Sorry, the Ace of Hearts. You can see that. Sorry. Hang on. Okay. That probably the second time I did it. The last time when I did this one. Just ignore those ones. Hang on a second here. Hang on.
Those obvious ones.
Oh, well, clearly, if this was Find the Aces trick, I'd be blowing your minds right now, wouldn't I? Hang on. And it's a spade, so it's okay. So that obviously hasn't impressed you guys in any way. That the only cards face up in here were the 4 aces. You can still see the 4 aces clearly?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys chose the Jack of Spades, right?
Yes.
Nothing's changed here. These were the 4 cards. I said the prediction was face up. And sure enough, this prediction says the Jack of hopefully spades.
Oof.
Wow.
There you go. A little bit of predictive magic. And truly one of my favorite effects. And like I said, an effect that I can definitely reproduce live. So.
Wow.
That was awesome. Thank you, Maestro.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for asking me to do it.
I think I've seen that somewhere done in the past, but
probably.
I still don't know.
I may have shown you this effect when we were working at Synergy during the summer. So
you just showed the trick. You never showed the technique.
Oh, I'm not going to tell you how I do it.
Yeah.
Darren, you got to be in the Brotherhood of Magicians.
Yes, you do. You definitely do.
I'm working there. Yeah, I'm slowly making my hair disappear. So I'll
Uh,
join in a few years. Wish I could do that with my weight. Anyway.
yeah. Oh, so yeah, so magic is definitely has been my first love. That was my first love. I started entertaining when I was 12, and that over the years led to a number of other uh, career things that I've done. But I was a nightclub DJ that led me to become an MC. Then I became a mobile DJ. MC led or DJing led into games and game shows. Long story, so I'm not gonna bore you with them. And but MC and magic and games became the three main things of my life right now, big time. And of course, when the pandemic struck, as a live entertainer, my whole life has been
Mm,
being a live entertainer, and the pandemic turned that all around, and I had to rediscover and learn, self-teach myself as much as I could about going virtual, about streaming, about videoing, and everything. So it was a huge wake up call for me and a huge career shift. So.
Hmm.
wow.
It's been it the shift actually ended up, it became the silver lining that I discovered in the pandemic. It truly did. I started literally when after the world shut down. And just to say it really briefly, is
Mhm,
that my career has been of a kind of nature that if one thing ended, I could always find something else. There was always work for me as a magician, as an MC, as some kind of entertainer. But when the pandemic struck, for every other person in the live entertainment business, where that's what it was gone. There was just nowhere to turn to but the virtual world. And I had a choice. My choice was I could do magic, but I'm not a I'm in person kind of magician. I do prefer being with the people in the same space when I do magic. So
mhm,
I did not do any magic for the last 2 years. I have not done really any magic at all. Very little, other than practicing at home, but nothing on camera aside from the odd trick. If I'm in a Zoom meeting or something, I'll show something quick, but not anything as a profession. So I turned to my games and I started my trivia game show, which you guys both played on. And when it first started, seriously, if you were to go back to when it first began, literally, I think in the first week of April of 2020, what I had done was I had taken my phone, I had it stuck on an old, gosh, I probably even have it here, tripod, taped it up to the tripod, doing
Is that
the
how you
10
use a
questions.
tripod?
Well, it was an old thing. It was like it didn't even have the thing on the top
The
anymore, so I couldn't
plate,
even plug
yeah.
it to anything. It was just that's all, because I had nothing. I just anyway, put it together. I had I got 10, my index cards, wrote up my 10 questions, and I did the 10 questions. Show lasted about a 10 or 15 minutes. But each week, and I was doing it twice a week, each week I evolved it a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more until November, near the end of November of 2020, TELUS learned of this game show and decided to simulcast it. So they started simulcasting it. And from that point, I had already moved onto my computer. Somebody else, a really dear friend of mine who is a computer genius. A big shout out to Mark, buddy. He has saved me time and time again with computer. But he introduced me to OBS, and OBS was a just a miracle. Like it was a miracle, and unfortunately, I had just enough knowledge of working in Adobe Premiere, as well as working in Photoshop to understand, uh, through my own, I watched a bunch of YouTube videos how to OBS, how to work with the OBS. I learned it, I taught it, and it suddenly gave me some more opportunities in doing the game show, even more fun, including having guests play on the show. And that was a really a big excitement. And that started right once I started the TELUS broadcasts. At the same time as things started with TELUS, I pitched to them another game show of mine, my bingo game show, Pass or Play, passorplay.ca, Pass or Play, and that got them interested enough that they licensed 10 episodes, which of course Dorin was involved with as our videographer, but 10 episodes of an interactive bingo game show. And again, doors that opened up and things that I was able to do because I chose, or found a new path to follow, which was, all again doing my own videography, doing my own filming, because I was a one man operation. I didn't have people here. I had no cameraman. I had no nothing. I had this. I had a couple of webcams that I've tied into my screen, into my show as well, into my little studio here. And it just evolved from there. And now lately, I've learned even more stuff, and I've changed my whole interface from the time that you guys were on it about 5 or 6 months ago when you guys were on it. The interface is now much more smooth. It looks really good with how the guests will be portrayed, and it much more easy functionality the way that I've set it up, as opposed to how I originally did it. And I know if I spent some real time or got a professional to spend an hour or two tutorial, I'd learn a lot more of what I could do with it. Um,
Wow,
but
Nate,
it,
sounds like it's time for a rematch.
oh, totally.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
New interface,
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
new year, new rematch, new trivia.
Well, if you guys are down, I have an opening right now on March 9th. I can lock you in right now for March 9th, and you guys can confirm that right here on your podcast that you will be my guest on March 9th. If you're down, I will lock you in. Look at that. I got that thing just ready to push. Lock.
Tentative.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Need
Well, I
to.
rambled on enough. You guys, if you have any questions or whatever, any questions of this, or did I just tell you
I mean,
everything?
that is such an amazing story. I like. I'm still trying to grasp how you can just make that switch, because from a live entertainment, like a very people person, and like reading the vibe and the energy of a room, interacting with people, building on that, to switching to a video format where you're staring at an inanimate object.
Yeah.
You're trying to
Well,
imagine your audience behind it in the future, unless it's a live stream, obviously.
and
But
all of my ever
it's
did was
not
live stream.
easy.
Buddy, and that's and it's again.
Well,
You
like,
saw me.
what can you explain what you felt the first time you do it? Did you feel anxiety? Did you feel worried? Like, towards the video aspect, what were the challenges and what were the fears you had to overcome to do this?
Oh, everything. I hadn't. Okay, first of all, I wasn't 100% sure I was doing it right. I had my girlfriend at her place, and I'm setting things up. We're doing tests. We're trying to run the stream test to make sure everything's working. And literally, I had to set myself up. Have her. We would do like a messenger, a video stream to each other, just to make sure that where I was standing, the way the light was hitting me, was still clear enough, and that they could hear me. And just hear me meant me just talking loud enough that they could pick up on my phone's microphone, because I had no equipment. I had really nothing but the phone that I started it with. And so I had that fear. Then I had the fear of, am I going to be even engaging enough? Are they going to enjoy this? I had the knowledge that as soon as it was over, it wasn't just going to cut or anything was going to take. I had to walk right up to the thing, click it to turn it off. And I knew that was happening. So all those things were going through my head while I was doing it. But I figured I have no choice. I for what I do, if I won the lottery and I won $100 million, I would still not stop doing what I'm doing because I love it so much. The live entertainment part of it. I love being in front of an audience. I feed off the energy of an audience. And Dorin, you nailed it. When I'm in front of just this, the inanimate object, unless I'm interacting with people like yourselves, which is why I wanted the guests on the show, I I and I do have people typing in the chat, so I still have some connection with my audience. But it's really hard when you're trying to run everything, doing the show, and be the host at the same time. I mean, you guys realize that you're doing the same thing yourselves. You're still trying to, run the technical and stuff while you're being a host. And my dream is to just be that host and have the production crew who takes care of all that sort of stuff. So I'm not worrying about that. So I can give all my focus to my audience when I'm entertaining, whether in front of an audience live or going on camera. But it did make me, the best thing about it is it's made me feel a hell of a lot more comfortable being in front of a camera than I was before this. Because I was
Mm,
always just a live entertainer. People would
mm,
videotape me doing it, but I was, I'd rarely be talking to the camera while they're videotaping me. I'm talking to the audience, right? So
Mm.
this is the first time I've really learned I've learned to more focus on that is my audience. That little dot there at that's right there is that wide audience out there. And Doran, you nailed it again, is when I had to imagine that being that crowd in front of me. But the energy will never be the same as in front of people, and it's just
yeah.
there's nothing that equates to it. But it was a free show. I wasn't getting paid for it. I just started doing it because I needed to be entertaining. And I really wanted to put something positive out there, just something that wasn't all the stuff that was going on in the world, because there's and now it's worse than ever. It is worse than ever. And the only thing that I have to battle it with is positive stuff that I can put out there to entertain with. But it's still a learning curve. I'm still learning. I learned a lot working with you and working with you doing the passer play, and I want to learn more. Uh, Countless projects are coming this way, so we'll be able to. So, did I answer okay, or did I just do another ramble?
Oh no, yeah, totally. You really dove in there and explained some stuff. What I see is you mentioned you're passionate, but I think another thing that is apparent to me now is you're without having this experience and knowledge, you decided to do tests before going live. You decided to prepare a lot. You got a green screen. You know about lighting and this stuff. Did anybody guide you to this, or were you that motivated and creative that you're like, I want to make a quality thing off the bat?
Yeah, this was pretty much all self-taught. The only help I would get was from my friend in the computer part, getting things set up, getting the OBS set up, the settings all read up so I can use a remote control, as we were talking about earlier, and that stuff. But as far as the learning to work with it all, I did it through YouTube videos and things that I could find and read about. I had to learn it, and I mean that's what I've pretty much done most of my career is self-taught. I couldn't afford to hire a graphics person when I designed my board game, so I had to teach myself things like CorelDRAW and Photoshop so that I could do the graphics. And I'm not a graphics expert, but I needed to be able to show these visions and things that I have. And
Yeah,
that's what I had to do. I had to do the same thing with all of this.
but that's what I mean. Like, if
Mm.
you've never done this before,
Never.
why would you like doing
I had
green
no choice.
screen, doing graphics, doing an animated background, switching between scenes in OBS? These are like intermediate skill stuff. You jumped right into intermediate in video.
Well,
That's what fascinates me.
there was a gradual learning curve that I had to go through, but I had no. It's just it. I had no choice. I had no choice. There was nothing else that I could do, and I wanted to put as
But what
qual
what
as
what in your brain made you go past I'm gonna film myself with the camera and I'm gonna entertain to I'm gonna put production value behind me?
that
What sparked that decision?
Well, right from that I've been producing live entertainment for years, and that's always the focus of when I do a production, any live production. I want it to look as great as it could.
Hmm.
When I first did this production, my living room, you may or may not remember the story, but I there's a place in New Westminster called the Castle. It's the gatehouse to the old BC Penitentiary, right there in on Wellington. I worked there for the last 3 years leading up into the pandemic. I was the magician of this. It looks like a castle. It's not, but it's a great place. Now I had over the 3 years there built up the Maestro's lair, which was at the basement of this castle. And for 3 years, I kept acquiring stuff that I would use for shows that I would do there and things that I would do there. When the pandemic struck and everything shut down, I was asked to clear everything out of there because they were going to just strip the castle bare and sell it, and that's what they did. So I brought everything back to my place, and again, this is right at the beginning. Everything was shut down. My son and I packed both our cars, brought it all here, and I turned because the world was shut down. When everybody was in quarantine, I turned my entire living room into a studio. I had all these big
Mm.
colorful curtains, and they literally covered the wall. I locked off my patio. I couldn't even get onto my patio because I set up the curtains, just filling all the walls in my living room, so that when the stick was on me, I had this background. And there's pictures. There's even you can probably find it on the trivia games page on Facebook, depending on how far back they keep all the videos. But I literally was just in this living room with lights and all this stuff that I had from the castle, all the special effects, everything flashing and everything all around the place. And I kept doing that for probably the first 5 or 6 months that I was running the show, because nobody was coming to my place. The place was kept, everybody was staying isolated, everybody was staying away. And it was hard that summer 2020, as beautiful as it was. I was living in a darkened den, and emotionally, mentally, it was starting to really take its toll. And doing this game, I had to do it. I had to keep doing it because it was the only thing keeping my sanity.
Hmm.
And I tried to make a big event with my passer play and my board game that summer that unfortunately failed pitifully. Nothing was going to happen. I had a venue that was, same venue. They were ready to do it there and everything, but we just couldn't get it going because it was in full blown pandemic mode. So that failed bad, and that just, I think that was the only time that I took a week or two off of doing the game show. I literally stopped it for 2 weeks. It was before Tellus, and it was one of the darker parts of the pandemic for me. But the trivia game show, I finally turned myself around and again started to learn more, and I had no choice, and I wanted to keep entertaining, and I wanted to do it as best a quality as what within my means could do. That's why it says filmed at half shoestring studios, because I was on less than a shoestring budget. I was on so it's what we do, and when um, to keep yourself sane, do what you love doing. It'll do it. It pulled me out.
That's some great advice, Maestro.
No, thank
Um, so you were touching on after you got that venue and you had those 10 episodes, and then you needed a professional to help you set all that up. Now, I want to hear how your communication and how working with Dorin was, because I know Dorin's done some live streaming and green screen keying in the past. What was your guys'
you.
workflow and relationship like there?
Well, Doran and I met doing the Synergy Dance competition, which was great, and we literally just we became friends instantly. We
We
joked
send
around
each
together
other
and stuff.
memes. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
we're at that level.
But not only that, we had to work together while doing the competition because he was doing the recording. I had to make sure volumes and everything were good for him, and everything was always set. So it was really super easy to work with. And so when things started moving forward with the pass or play, and I knew it was going to happen, I started talking about Doran about what he would charge. Would he be interested in doing it? And he jumped on board right away. He loved the idea. Most important, he was absolutely thrilled to be able to work with me. And it's gone right over your guys' head.
I mean,
No,
I like your energy.
well, it and
Those
I was
positive
he,
vibes.
well, the thing is, Doran was a complete lifesaver because right from day one, when we first started talking about how I saw this, we met out at the restaurant. How I told him I wanted to lay it out. My original idea, just again to save money, was it was going to be all done on green screen, and then and Doran in like when 1 minute explained that how bad an idea that would have
Well,
been.
no, the only reason that would have been a bad idea is because you wanted to do multi-camera, different angles,
Yeah.
green screen, and I'm like, that's a nightmare.
Yeah,
No.
and so and which was fine because doing it this way made it better, made it simpler. Now, because of again our limitations and a budget of pennies to make this thing happen, we decided it was going to be 3 stationary cameras. If I had had my druthers and I had a budget, there would be 3 cameramen, camera people, that is, doing the show, so we could have a lot more fluid action and movement. But for what we had and what our means within our means, we were able to pull off production because of Doran and his ability. Because this was a heck of I mean, I don't think there's a TV producer out there who would have put on 10 episodes of something with the budget we had, unless they had something of at least 6 or 7 figures to pull this off, and we had a very very low budget to pull this off with. But we did it. We went ahead and did it. Any problems? Doran was an absolute. You were my lifesaver. He not only was able to make this setup as professional as perfect, help with getting lighting equipment and everything we did to make this look as great as possible, but the live switching of a show he'd never seen before, had no idea how it was going to work. I sent him just one, I guess, Excel file that laid out how all the scenes should go. I had it all in my
Mhm.
head because I hadn't done any test runs. We didn't do any. I had never done the show. I had the whole show in my head.
Mm.
Aside from one production I'd done 4 years earlier for a McDonald's live event, very quickly put together, but it worked. It proved that the show worked. So I just took what I knew how the show was going to flow, gave it to him, but he picked it up and he was able to do the live switching of this broadcast. And yeah, we hit a lot of bumps, made a lot of mistakes. Well, not him as much as myself. The original's live stream of the show was supposed to be going on my web on the Pass or Play website, but I didn't realize I had the settings set for private, so everybody who went to see it couldn't
Ah.
see it. So I
Mm.
made a lot of technical mistakes because I just didn't have the technical expertise to have done this, and I relied completely on both Doran and my other videographer who was helping with it, Bryce, who was phenomenal, and both of them working together just did just an outstanding job out of the episodes. And we have a great product, but it's not a product I want to get up again until we have a proper budget to work with. So any of
Mm.
you viewers out there are looking to invest in a project, get in touch with me. So
So was Doran the first videographer that you thought of for this project, or was there anybody else
There was
before?
there
Did
was
you try and
only
do it
2 there was 2
yourself?
people there was 2 people I had in mind for this, and one was Doran, like, he was the first person I asked. I think I asked him either just and I think I asked you before I asked Bryce. Bryce is a young man who went to Langer, Film School with my son. My
Hmm.
son was there, now the fan Langara Film Arts, I don't know if you know that program there, but it's fantastic. And Bryce was going into the as learning the videography part of it as well as directing. He wants to be a director and editor, specifically directing. He really loves being a director, and he's a great kid. He's really really a good guy, and I know his quality. I've seen what he's done, so I always knew I'd have him involved somehow. But Doran, he was my 100% first choice, the first person I went to, not just because yes, I was working with him at the time this was all happening, but because I liked him, because I liked what he did. I liked how professional he was with what he was doing there. He could joke around,
Oh,
but he was.
thanks.
Well, no, you were. I mean, you were. Seriously, if you
Wa-
were an idiot, or if I didn't get along with you, I would have never asked you. But
Was
because it was
I
just,
was I the first videographer that you've had to deal with?
uh,
Like that you've
yeah,
ever had to hire?
yeah, definitely. You are the first one that because in any
Hmm.
productions and stuff that I've ever done, the majority of them, if there are videographers involved, that's hired by the client who hired me. They bring all those people in. I've never had to bring in because I've never done a broadcast for television before, so I've never needed one. And if there was anything captured of me, it would usually be my girlfriend with her phone or something else.
Hmm.
And again, I don't have a budget to hire a videographer. So yes, you are 100% the first videographer I have ever hired to work with, and very happy. That's why I'm.
As I think you're the first client we have on here as a guest. Is that
Oh really?
am I recalling
Okay.
that correct, Nate?
Yeah, I mean, like I've done behind the scenes and second shooter for you, so you kind of like you're contracted me, but
Hmm.
not in the sense of a finished big end product like a show.
Yeah, like a
Well,
non-video person contracting is what I'm getting at. Because maybe you
Hmm.
can give us some insights on how you thought the experience was. Like, did you think that videography is that? Did you find it more complex when you had to
oh,
deal with me with all the
no,
details?
okay, no. Dealing with and all that stuff, I knew was par for the course. To me, it was again, I learned a lot of stuff, but I had 100% confidence in everything you were doing. There wasn't one
Oh,
time I was worried. Oh, I
I
hope he does
know.
it.
No,
So,
I'm
so that
specifically
made that
asking.
that for me was important though. You have to understand that was really
Hmm.
important for me to have that comfort with you. But
Uh,
once I saw the whole setup, I loved it. I was in awe of how much was there for the setup. I didn't know the kind of equipment you were going to be bringing. I'm
that's what I
assuming
was
three.
more asking. Like,
Oh yeah,
did you feel like, whoa, video is way more complex than I
oh
thought it could
yeah.
be?
Well, I had the good fortune of being in a couple of movies where I've either worked as an extra or something else. So I've seen a little bit of the behind the scenes stuff. So I see all the stuff that was there, and then when I saw all that you set up with all the monitor, the screens, the switcher, the computers. Again, in my mind originally, I'm just imagining 3 cameras hooked up into a laptop, right? And I wasn't going into it, but until I started seeing your whole setup, I was awed, and I thought this is so cool. This is so cool. So, and clearly, my next production of Pass or Play, when we get the wherewithal to do it the way it needs to be done, I have no issue if Nate, if you're interested in being, one of the camera part of the group, because I don't want to do 3 stationary cameras. I want to have
Mm.
camera people
Yeah,
taking
I
care of
remember
the
you wanted to have an audience cam too, because with live
yeah.
audience and audience interaction.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I have a new venue that I would do the show from that would have it was more is more perfect for the type of show that would be. I do, and I don't want to do it unless I have that wherewithal. I won't do it on the fly like I did with these.
Hmm.
That just gave us
Mm.
the video evidence that we actually have a production here, and I'm still actively trying to get the backing we need for this, and I will.
I
I
have
will.
to
Yeah.
say, for me, it was the first time doing that type of live stream. Like up until then, I just did like some music stuff and some weddings. But this was like the most dynamic live switch that I've had to do, which made it really fun at the end of the day. Because, like this is the first time I had to follow reactions. Like you're talking, but if someone's like cracking up at your joke, like ooh, switch to them, or if someone's like interacting with you, like switching back and forth between you and the person you're interacting with, that was a new level of challenge for me that I really had to pay attention to. So it was a great opportunity to try something new. And what I loved most was that at the end of that, it actually felt like a live game show that you see on TV. Because you had like scoreboards, you had the whole game down to an enjoyable and easy to follow flow. Guests loved it, and you got the voice, the personality. It's like, what more
Like,
can you ask for? That's all the raw ingredients you need.
and that's what I was hoping would be enough for us to be able to, and I know it will be. I know it will be. I think the show as a major production would have a real success on a network television station. And I've got the evidence to pitch it. I just got to get in front of the right people with it, and I want to take it to the next level. I'm excited to do it again because it was a
Mm.
lot of fun. I guess I can throw the same question right back at you. How hard was it working with a client like myself who has a limited knowledge? I have a vision. I know things I want to do, but was I driving you crazy? Did I give you enough? I mean, like with what I gave you, did I give you enough to be able to take on the task, or did I, you know,
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, we sorted all the stuff out. You did fulfill my main request, which was please
to
let's
pay you?
have a yes. Uh, my second most important request was to have a practice run beforehand
Yeah.
where we actually like see how long it takes us to set up. You allotted enough time for setup, which was so nice.
Yes.
And you took care of venue and all the other stuff. So as a client, you did great in that aspect. The most challenging thing, if you don't mind me
Oh,
sharing,
please. Yes,
was
go ahead.
something I mentioned earlier, and now I remembered because I talked about it earlier from another viewpoint. Your passion and your creativity drives you, which is an awesome thing. But it was a bit of a, it was it put me
Uh-oh.
in a very difficult situation of being careful to not say yes to everything and then realizing like, okay, it sounds awesome, but can I actually execute that? Like I was the guy kind of slowing you down and putting on the brakes like, "Oh, I don't know if we can do that."
And
And I was like, it's a very delicate place to be in as a videographer because you don't want to fizzle out the excitement. You don't want to seem like I'm not the answer to your need, to your video visualization, but how do I ground you to this is what I'm able to do and this is what realistically most people would do.
uh,
So you
you did
you
great. There was
you
no
were
issue.
easy to communicate with. I just had to really slow you down because you're like, oh, and I want this and I want that, and the scoreboard's gonna animate on screen. I'm like, how are we gonna do that? I'm like, can we get actual scoreboards? Because that's what actual game shows do, and maybe,
Yes.
and you agreed to
Oh,
that, and then you
oh,
flipped it back at me. He's like, can you help me find them? I'm like, okay.
and you found the scoreboards are fantastic. They're perfect.
I don't
Uh,
know how I
just
found them.
well, it was a great relationship, buddy.
We ended
That's
up
why that's
getting like store LED signs from some company in Toronto that did the custom size that we wanted, not a huge window one, just enough for to be on the top of a table. And magically, they also happen to be, besides the only ones that matched the size of our tables, the only ones they had the software where you could control all of them from one laptop. So
Mm,
you could update the
nice.
score from one laptop,
yeah.
and they were within your budget.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, I'm so glad that worked out
And
because
they worked beautifully.
otherwise you would have
And they worked
hated
beautifully.
me.
They worked beautifully. It
Because
was
you took
great.
on my suggestion, but then it's like, well, how do I do this? Okay, I'll do this, but how do I do it? I'm like, I don't know. Here, buy these. And you did. I'm like, do they work? And you're like, yeah. I'm like,
Oh, they worked
oh,
great.
okay.
They worked great. No, I lucked out.
I
I
was
lucked
so
out.
worried. I was expecting you to just be like, you made me spend the remaining of my budget on this and they don't work. And now you've crippled me.
Yeah.
That's why I was
Well,
like
they no, no,
worried.
and I'm glad, because they did pretty much eat up the last of the budget. And I had only, again, very little to work with, but it made the show look great. It
Yeah,
made the
I
show
agree.
look great. So
Now, Maestro,
Yes.
I had a question. When things start kind of opening up again, if the trend continues and you're able to do your magic shows and stuff in person, are you going to continue the virtual side of things,
Mm.
or are you
I
going to switch back to only like in person?
The trivia game show is I'm having fun with it, but I do think it may peter out. I think I've got maybe a few more months with it. River Rock has now asked me back, so I'll be emceeing again at the River Rock Casino starting next week. The Synergy Dance competition is back. I've already got one venue that I might be doing some strolling magic in. Start doing that on a weekly basis. And I've created a new trivia game show for live venues, and it's literally called the Maestro's Ultimate Trivia Challenge. A completely different type of a format than the one on virtual. So it depends. I would like to do a couple other things virtually, but I don't really want to do them alone anymore. So I'm hoping that as things evolve with the Pass or Play, that that's going to be a streamed live show no matter what. It's going to be a live audience. It's going to be streamed and it's going to be videotaped out there. That's the production I ultimately want to get to next. So that's my goal. But I am still having fun doing the trivia game show. And even though I will be working again, I'm having fun with it. It takes a half an hour out of once every couple of weeks, and putting a show together. I spend a couple of hours one day. I have a really nice fun 10-question show. That's just something fun. And it also gives me a chance to market my upcoming Pass or Play when that happens, my board games, and all the other projects I'm working on. So
Hmm.
I think I'll continue it. It seems to be a good following, and I get some pretty good numbers on Telus. So that excites me for sure.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Maestro.
Yeah, you have this video knowledge now. I wonder what you can do with it if you go back to live audiences. Like, are you gonna start like vlogging yourself and filming some
You know,
stuff? Maybe start a social media account, some TikTok, like ooh, magic tricks in front of the kids, and get like the kids' reaction. All of them like freak out, like, oh, how did you write on the cards?
and that's just it. I will start applying this with quite often when I do some stuff. I do have somebody there who will capture it on a phone and capture some great stuff with me and the audiences that I perform for, and I will put them out there more on things like Instagram and on my Facebook and my Instagram. I don't do a lot of social media, but I should. Excuse me. I did make a TikTok for Pass or Play, but I've only done one or two videos. I just didn't. I wanted to have something more concrete before I started putting out there. And in other words, in fact, the Pass or Play TikTok that I've created, my plans for that is as soon as we do get greenlit to start putting the production together is start following the process. Here's today's TikTok, and hey, here's the studio that we're going to be doing it in, or now we're just going to go check out this or this, as the each of the steps that we go through to launching the next show. So that's what that TikTok set up for. But I was also thinking, and maybe you guys might be able to help me with this, that maybe I should stream the trivia game show on Twitch. I don't know enough about it, but what do you think of that? Do you guys think that the trivia game show would work on there, or is there a different? Like, I only have it on Telus and on Facebook. That's the only two places. And with the Restream account that I have one more place I can put it. I just don't know what would be the best place to put it. And so,
Oh, so you mean in addition?
yeah, I can do one more stream on it right now.
Hmm.
I've got one to Facebook, one to Telus, and one to wherever I want. So I was thinking,
Twitch would be amazing because it does have niche pockets and you could get exposure there. You just have to do it consistently and in a regular schedule. So like that's how you kind of hook in Twitch followers and subs is if they know like, oh yeah, every Wednesday this happens, or
what
if
if
you
it was
have
every second Wednesday? Is that because if I
yeah.
was is that frequent enough, or would that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Most Twitch streamers are successful because of a predictable, consistent schedule. Even if it's once every 2 weeks, if it's something very engaging, yeah,
Okay,
I think Twitch is great.
all
Yeah,
right.
I think Twitch would be good. I think the trickiest thing might be to monitor comments from multiple sources. I know when Dorin and I did a live episode, like I had Instagram live and he had Facebook live, and we were trying to like respond to both platforms at once, and it was a bit tricky at times.
Yeah, and we
So
had
you
nobody
would
commenting, and it was still hard.
Well, I guess if it's on Twitch though, I because You see, I have a when I do it through Facebook and through again, this is where I have again very limited knowledge about this stuff. But on Facebook, I got the Facebook chat. I'm able to put that onto the OBS, so you can see people chatting on there. If I was on
Mhm.
Twitch too, would I be able to also activate the Twitch chat and put that into there as well?
Yeah, so if you
You
have
would
a
be able to,
Yep.
second monitor or a second laptop, you could pop it on there.
yep.
You could have it on your phone.
But could I also have it on the OBS?
With the
Yeah.
plugin, you can get Twitch chat into other applications. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And OBS specifically, I think it does have a Twitch
Yeah, it
plugin.
does. And in fact, there's an upgrade for it right now, and it just said that if you don't upgrade before the end of February, it's going to affect how your Twitch is going to be.
Oh,
So I don't know if you've just done the most recent upgrade. I just haven't done it yet, and it just gave me this warning saying that the new upgrade it should be put in because if you don't, then after the end of February, you just have. I don't know. I didn't understand what it said, so I'll just do the upgrade
I'll have
after
to
I get off
read. I
with you.
always just say next skip version, skip version. I'm like, it's working. I don't need any new features. Thank you.
Well, I skipped the last one. The last one that I updated actually was really cool because one thing that it didn't have before but does now is Control Z. So if you make a mistake
Mm.
and you move
Oh,
something over, instead of having to push it back very gently back to exactly where it was, you can just hit close. It now does the back. It goes,
the
it
undo.
clears it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the undo. Yeah, and I didn't have that before, and I'm sure there's other things it does too, but that made me very happy because I hit that. You trying to move one of the part of the scene around, and oh crap, I hit the wrong thing, and then you have to move it back. That just was. So I didn't mind doing the upgrade, and now if it's going to have something to do with Twitch, I better do it as well. So.
Mm-hmm. So, as a final thought here, would you say that video was something that was very beneficial to you and very, maybe not easy to pick up, but very accessible and lots of resources for free at your disposal?
100%. For what I needed to do, I was able to put together a decent little package, but there is no doubt that with a professional videographer, and I'm not saying that just because 'cause you're here or anything like that, you can do so much more. I I
Mm-hmm.
I I did that because I needed to, and for people out there who have limited budgets, who have limited wherewithal to do those kind of things, there is enough, especially OBS. If you have not heard of OBS, if you have never used the OBS and you wanna do streaming, get OBS. To me, I know
It's free.
there's other ones out there. There's definitely other ones out there, but OBS it's free. Exactly, it's free and it's fantastic. It's super user friendly. Few YouTube videos and you will have it mastered. Enough that you can do the streaming with. So, uh, from what I've learned of all this, I definitely want to incorporate being videotaped far more with what I do live. Like whether I'm at the River Rock or doing the Synergy or stuff like that, I like to get more of what I'm doing captured, especially magic. And until I have a budget to hire somebody like, a Dorin or a Nate to be there to capture me, I have to rely on my girlfriend or other people who can capture me while I'm doing it. But yeah, huge, huge, huge advantage. But it is a world that for any entertainer and all entertainers, like the majority of us entertainers, magicians especially, had to learn this craft when the world shut down. Because a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the magicians I know, they weren't doing streaming magic shows, they were doing live magic shows, but then they started doing it, and I watched the evolution of that, and I gotta tell you, I gotta give those magicians a lot of credit because they had no choice. So they started doing magic, and at first, it was clunky and uncomfortable because this was also new for them as well, and they didn't have the audience reaction to the stuff that they were doing. They'd show a trick, and you don't hear any reaction. You might hear, "Oh, that looked really cool," and stuff on the chat, but it evolved very quickly, and then I started watching, and the more I watched, these magicians were giving it their best effort. They were making their sets, they were making their magic, even more impressive. But then, of course, there was the negative side of it was then they were relying more on stuff that you could only do on Instagram or on video and stuff that wouldn't, that if you were in front of a public, you would have to have the entire audience completely in front of you and nobody at your side or anywhere near you for
Mm.
the stuff you were doing. So, which is great. It was still it became video magic but to any entertainer out there, we all had to turn to it, and
Actually, I have an interesting question for you. You just
oh
said video magic. You know, some magicians rely on video editing to create illusions instead of like technically
yes,
doing them. How do you
okay,
feel about that? Is that
that
real magic or
that I
no?
no, that, it's very from the most professional magicians I've ever seen, very seldom use, the video tricks to make it to pull it off. And again, at the worst I could say is that they can show you a trick that yes, they could do it for you live if you were the only person there to do it live, but you wouldn't do it in front of a live audience because a lot of those magic tricks that you see there are not angle proof. In
Hmm.
other words, straight on, you can't tell what's happening, but if you were standing at the side, you might be able to pick up on it. I have seen, and even professional magicians, I'm not going to mention a name, and it really bothered me because it was a professional show where they relied on, um, let's just say, a creative edit to pull off an illusion. The illusion could still be done, is an illusion that can be done in front of a live audience and is great. But because of the way they wanted to make it appear like it was just out in a normal scenario outside in front of everybody, they relied on something that I felt lessened it. It
Hmm.
lessened it, you know? I mean, I don't even mind the magic where you can only have the one angle because it still looks good, and to me, it's still magic, and I don't mind that, but when they did it that way, that did bother me.
Hmm.
So, you know, that is but that's my own personal opinion, on magic that way, so.
All right.
Yeah.
Doran trying to stir the pot.
Hey, man, you mentioned
No,
video
no,
magic, and I'm
it's
like,
true.
I gotta ask
It
this.
there are definitely just like every craft that is out there, whether it's a videographer, a magician, a musician, or whatever, a dancer, there's going to be people who will spoil the craft, who will treat it with disrespect. And
Mm.
that's the only way that I can look at things like that. And again, just my humble opinion. But it's very few and it's very rare. It's just the one time when I saw that one magician do that.
That is just a great amount of information and inspiration for getting into video, just testing it out with what you do have, the value, as you mentioned, of going with a professional videographer,
Yes.
and the magical world of magic and game shows and emceeing. Quite a few titles there. If you want to know more of Maestro and get in touch with him and see more of what he does, where can people find you?
Well, I think you got my website, Pass or Play, on here. Passorplay.ca is the
Hmm.
Pass or Play website, but you can reach me there. It also has a link to the my board game, Amazing Bingo, first game to turn bingo into a game of strategy. It should also have a link to my magic site and Magic and MC, which is themaestroofmagic.com, themaestroofmagic.com. And that's where you can learn about my magic and MC services and other things that are available, or anything you might be interested in, games and game shows, or bingo. I'm very, very involved in bingo related entertainment too. So please reach out.
Hmm.
But Pass or Play would be your quickest way to get in contact with me for sure through passorplay.ca. And if I can get Nate and Doran to be on the show on March 9th, if not, they'll be on a future date. But if
Hmm.
you yourself or anybody out there watching this would like to be a contestant on the trivia game show on Facebook and on Telus Optic TV, go to passorplay.ca because there is a link there for the trivia game show sign up. So you go to there and it'll tell you everything you need to do to potentially be a contestant live on the game show on one of the Wednesday nights. So that's how.
Awesome. Any social media you use?
I'm on Facebook. I am on Instagram. I have 2 or 3 accounts on Instagram. I have, like I said, I do have a Pass or Play TikTok, but I'm
Hmm.
going to activate that more when we get into pre-production for the much, much higher end production value of the game show. So yeah. And those are the
Awesome.
main. I do have a Twitter account, but I haven't used it that much. So those would be my most social media.
Hmm. Sweet. All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, that's a wrap for today's podcast. Thank you for watching and listening. And thank you, Maestro, for being our guest.
Oh, it has been my pleasure indeed. Thank you for having me, gentlemen, both of you.
Yes, and be sure to subscribe to not miss an episode of the Nate and Doran podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. This has been Nate and Doran, joined by the Maestro. Thank you for watching and listening.
Thank you. Good night.